I spent 42 years being useful. Not loved, not seen, not cherished. Just useful. The kind of useful that gets taken for granted. That gets thanked once a year on Mother's Day with a candle and a "thanks, Mom," scribbled on a drugstore card. But the other 364 days? I was just the invisible machine that kept everything running. Groceries, babysitting, cooking, bills, emergency pickups, emotional support, free childcare, backup wallet, therapist, human cushion. And I did it all, without asking for anything in return. At least, not until I stopped being useful. And that's when I saw their real faces. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It's a slow fade, a slow rot. It starts with something small. Like when my oldest daughter, Amanda, stopped calling just to talk and only reached out when she needed me to watch the kids. "Just for a couple of hours, Mom," she'd say. "You're the only one I trust." She'd drop them off at 10 a.m. and not show up until well after dark. No apology, no explanation, just a sigh and, "God, I'm so tired," like I hadn't been chasing a toddler all day. Then there was my son, Brian. Every conversation with him ended the same way. "Hey, Mom, any chance you could cover my car payment this month?" I swear, I'm just waiting on a check to clear. That check never cleared, but my bank account did. Again and again, and I justified it, because that's what mothers do, right? They help, they give, they make sacrifices, even when no one asks how they're doing in return, even when no one notices they're slowly breaking. The worst part? I believed that was love. That giving endlessly was what made me a good mother. That being needed was the same thing as being valued. But the truth is, I wasn't loved. I was used. And the day I stopped being useful, the truth came out like poison. It started when I got sick. Nothing dramatic, just age catching up with me. A bad hip, high blood pressure, arthritis so bad I couldn't open a jar some mornings. I was still me, but slower. Softer. I needed help. Not even a lot. Just a ride to the doctor. A prescription picked up. Someone to shovel the driveway when the snow got heavy. I thought I could count on them. After all, hadn't I spent decades doing all of that and more? The first time I asked Amanda to take me to an appointment, she said, "Can't you just take an Uber?" I'm slammed this week. Slammed. But not too slammed to post Instagram stories from a wine bar that same evening. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, smiled, and told her not to worry. I'd manage. When I asked Brian if he could swing by to help move a heavy box from the garage, he said, Mom, I'm dealing with so much right now. Honestly, I just don't have the bandwidth. Bandwidth. Like I was a Wi-Fi signal he couldn't connect to. That's when something shifted in me. Something quiet. Not rage, not sadness. Just awareness. Clarity. I'd stopped being useful. And in their eyes, I'd stopped mattering. They didn't even notice when I stopped calling. When I stopped sending money. When I stopped babysitting, or reminding them of birthdays, or stocking their favorite snacks when they visited. They didn't check in. They didn't ask why. They just moved on. Until they couldn't. Until they needed me again. Amanda called one afternoon, frantic. "Mom, can you pick up Emma from school? She has a fever and I have a client meeting." I said, calmly, "I'm sorry, honey. I can't." Silence. Then, "What do you mean, you can't? What's more important than your granddaughter?" I said, "Taking care of myself." Brian texted me the same week. "Hey, Mom, rent's tight this month. Any chance you could spot me $500? I replied, "I'm sorry. I'm on a fixed income now." He left me on read. And just like that, the machine had stopped. The faucet had run dry. The free labor, the emotional dumping ground, the backup savings account, it was all gone. I braced for concern. For someone to knock on my door and ask, "Are you okay?" But no one came. Instead, I started hearing things from other people. "Brian says you've been acting strange. Amanda mentioned you've been kind of distant." The narrative was shifting. I wasn't their tired, selfless mother anymore. I was becoming the villain in their story. The selfish one. The one who changed. And they were right, I had changed. I started doing little things I hadn't done in years. I signed up for a ceramics class at the local rec center. I joined a book club. I started walking every morning, slowly at first, then faster, as my body remembered how to carry itself with purpose. I stopped trying to make myself useful. I started trying to make myself happy. One morning, I made a list. Not a to-do list. Not errands or groceries. A list titled, What I Want. At the top, peace. Under that, laughter, warmth, music, kindness, a home that feels like mine. There was no mention of obligation. No mention of guilt. No line item for help them even when it hurts. I didn't know it yet, but that list was the beginning of a new life. A life not built around what my kids needed, but around who I really was. It's funny how quickly people change their tone when you stop serving their needs. At first, Amanda just got passive-aggressive. She didn't yell or beg. She sent one of those long, guilt-laced texts, the kind that sounds polite but feels like a slap. It just would have been nice if you'd given us some warning, Mom. You've always been the reliable one. The one we could count on. I guess I didn't realize that was conditional. Conditional. That word stuck with me like a bone in my throat. As if reliability was supposed to mean endless, unquestioning sacrifice. As if I owed them my body, my time, my breath, just because I'd always given it before. Brian didn't do passive-aggressive. He did loud. 2 days after I refused to help with rent, he showed up at my door unannounced. I heard the knock and knew right away. There's a certain rhythm when your child is angry but trying to sound innocent. A certain fake brightness in their voice. "Hey, Mom," he said, too cheerful. "Can I come in?" I almost didn't let him. But I was still learning. Still unlearning, actually. I opened the door, and he stepped in like it was still his house. Looked around like he was inspecting a room he used to own. He didn't waste time. "So, what's going on?" he asked. "You okay? You've been off lately." "I'm fine," I said, calm and clear. He frowned. "Amanda says you've been kind of cold. She said you won't even help her with Emma anymore." "I mean, come on, Mom, she's your granddaughter." There it was. The weaponized guilt. The unspoken rule that my usefulness extended through generations. I said, "Emma is my granddaughter. But I'm not her nanny. Amanda chose to have kids. That doesn't make me the on-call help desk." He blinked like I'd slapped him. "Where is this coming from?" I almost laughed. As if I'd transformed overnight. As if decades of invisible labor didn't earn me the right to one no. "It's coming from 60 years of never saying no," I said. We stood in silence for a long moment. I could see it behind his eyes, the calculation. He was trying to decide which strategy would work. Anger? Sympathy? Manipulation? He settled on the old faithful, blame. "You're acting like this because you're lonely," he said. "You're bitter. You pushed everyone away, and now you're punishing us for it." I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "I'm acting like this because for the first time, I'm listening to myself." He huffed, rolled his eyes. "Whatever. Don't come crying to us when you realize you made a mistake." And just like that, he walked out. No hug, no goodbye, just slammed the door hard enough to rattle the glass. I stood there for a moment, hand still on the doorknob, and took a deep breath. I expected to feel sad, or scared, or shaken, but I didn't. I felt something else entirely. A strange, solid kind of peace. Like I'd finally dropped a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. The next day, I got a letter in the mail. Not from Brian, not from Amanda, from a woman I barely knew. She was in my book club. Her name was Joanne, early 70s, wore scarves with big earrings and never finished the books but always had something wise to say. The letter was short. "Margaret," it read, "I heard what happened. Just wanted to say, welcome to the club. The club of women who said, enough. Who walked out of the room when the applause stopped. Who realized being needed isn't the same as being valued. If you ever want to talk, my porch is open. Bring wine." I sat on my couch holding that letter and cried. Not from pain, from recognition. Someone saw me. That Friday, I went to Joanne's. We sat on her porch in mismatched chairs, sipped wine from mugs because all her glasses were in the dishwasher, and talked. Really talked. She told me about the son who stopped calling when she stopped sending checks. About the daughter who only came over when she needed a babysitter or a ride to the airport. About the moment she realized that all her love had been interpreted as obligation. We laughed. We cursed. We toasted to freedom. And then she said something that stuck with me. "They treat us like vending machines," she said. "Push a button, get what you want. But when the machine's empty, nobody thanks it." They kick it. I nodded. Well, this vending machine is officially out of service. And we clinked mugs. I don't know what happens next. Maybe Amanda stops speaking to me for a while. Maybe Brian tells everyone I've lost it. But I do know this. I'm done earning love through exhaustion. I'm done mistaking obligation for affection. I'm done being the strong one if that just means I'm the one who never gets to rest. From now on, I'm not available for emotional labor. I'm not available for guilt. I'm not available for thankless giving. I'm available for peace, for joy, for rediscovering the parts of me I buried under everyone else's needs. They used me until I stopped being useful. Now, they don't know what to do with me. Good. Let them wonder. It's strange how people react when you stop asking for permission. Not permission to leave the room or make a decision, but permission to exist as someone with needs of your own. Suddenly, you're not just mom or grandma anymore. You're inconvenient. You're difficult. You're suspicious. The week after I visited Joanne, the calls stopped. The texts too. At first, I thought my phone was broken. Then I realized, no one was reaching out because I wasn't offering anything. No babysitting, no baked goods, no rides, no rent, no reminders. Just silence. I sat with it, the kind of silence that used to make me anxious. But this time, I let it settle in like an old friend who didn't need entertaining. I made coffee the way I liked it, strong, with real cream and a splash of cinnamon. I read mystery novels and didn't feel guilty for ignoring laundry. I even took a walk every evening just because I liked the way the sky looked before dark. For the first time in years, I started asking myself small questions. Do I like this music, or was I just used to it? Do I actually enjoy knitting, or did I pick it up because it was harmless? Do I want to see the ocean again before I die? I made a list. Not a bucket list. God, no. That's too dramatic. Just a list of things I wanted to try. Tiny things. Paint a wall a bold color. Buy a plant and try not to kill it. Take myself out to lunch and not bring a book. But of course, peace never sits too long without someone trying to rearrange the furniture. It started with Amanda again. She sent a voice note. I hadn't heard her voice in weeks. Hey, Mom. So, I've been thinking. Maybe we didn't handle things the right way. Maybe you didn't either. I mean, family's family, right? We don't always get it right. But we should stick together. I think Emma misses you. And I know I do. There was something about her tone that rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even dishonest. But it was calculated, like she'd realized she might need me again soon, and this was her version of laying groundwork. I didn't respond right away. I let it sit, for hours, then days, and the longer I waited, the more I realized, I didn't owe her instant forgiveness. I didn't owe anyone a performance of reconciliation just to keep the peace. So I sent back a voice note of my own. Hi, Amanda, I love you, but I'm not ready to come back into a dynamic where I feel more useful than loved. When that changes, I'll be here. Short, honest, no drama. I half expected a storm. But instead, I got silence again. Brian didn't stay silent for long. He sent me a string of texts that started polite and ended in all caps. You think you're the victim? You're the one who walked away. We've been struggling and you don't even care. He attached a photo of his apartment with a broken heater. A video of Emma sneezing. Even a screenshot of his bank balance. It was like emotional crowdfunding. Except the currency wasn't money, it was guilt. But I didn't pay. Instead, I made soup. Lentil and kale. Ate it by the window with my slippered feet tucked up under me and Billie Holiday on the radio. And then, something remarkable happened. Joanne invited me to a little gathering, just 5 women, all over 60, all doing their own version of starting over. They called it the shed circle because they'd all shed something: marriages, expectations, old identities. I brought wine and sat quietly at first, just listening. One woman talked about how she stopped dyeing her hair after 30 years and felt freer than ever. Another said she left a high-paying job to become a part-time baker at 68. A third shared that she told her adult kids she wouldn't be available on weekends anymore. That's when I go dancing, she said, dead serious. We laughed. We cried. And I didn't feel invisible. Not once. I left with a kind of warmth in my chest I hadn't felt since before I became mom with a capital M. The kind of warmth that says, you are still a whole person. Even now. Especially now. The next morning, I opened the window, let the air in, and wrote one more line on my list. Learn to be loved without being needed. About a week after the shed circle, I got a message from Amanda. Not a guilt trip this time, not a voice note full of soft manipulation. Just 4 words. Can we talk? Please. No punctuation, no emojis. Just quiet desperation. I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back, okay. At my place. Tuesday. Just you. She showed up 5 minutes early, holding a pie. Store-bought. Still had the clearance sticker on it. I knew it wasn't about the pie. It was her peace offering, the kind that says let's pretend this never happened. I let her in. She looked around like it was her first time seeing the place. It's cozy, she said. I nodded. It's mine. We sat at the little kitchen table. She kept shifting in her seat, like she was trying to figure out the right angle to approach me. Finally, she sighed. I miss you, Mom. Emma misses you. I nodded, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. She glanced at the pie between us. Things have been hard. Hard how? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Not cruel. Just real. She started listing off the usual: childcare, bills, work stress. I didn't interrupt. I didn't nod in sympathy. I just listened. When she finished, I said, I'm sorry you're going through that. I really am. But I'm not the solution to all your problems anymore. She blinked, clearly thrown. I didn't come here to ask for money, she said quickly, as if reading my mind. I miss my mom. That got to me. Because the truth is, I missed being a mom too. The kind where your child calls you just because they saw something that reminded them of you. The kind where you get a birthday card without having to drop hints. But that's not the kind of mom they wanted. They wanted the tireless kind. The quiet kind. The giving tree kind. I know you miss me, I said. But I'm not going back to being the version of me that was convenient for everyone else. Her eyes started to shine. You think we only loved you for what you did? I looked her dead in the eye. I know you did. She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, I didn't know how much we leaned on you. Until you stepped away. That's the thing about leaning, I said. It doesn't feel like pressure until the wall moves. She wiped her eyes and laughed, a little bitter. So what now? Are we just strangers? No, I said softly. But we're not going back to the way things were either. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be as equals. Not mother martyr and daughter consumer. She sat with that, chewed on it like gristle. Then she said, I don't know how to do that. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of real hope. Because admitting you don't know, that's where truth begins. We didn't hug. We didn't cry it out. She left the pie and went home. But for once, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a door. Maybe not open yet, but unlocked. That night I lit a candle, poured a glass of wine, and whispered something into the quiet that felt like a vow. No more giving from emptiness. No more proving my worth through exhaustion. From now on, I love without disappearing. I stood by the window, watching the moon hang low and silver in the sky, and thought, they used me until I stopped being useful. Now I'm becoming something they've never seen before. Whole. It was Brian this time. Not a message, not a voicemail. He showed up at my door. No warning. Just him, standing there in that same jacket I bought him 5 Christmases ago, now too tight around the shoulders and stained at the cuff. His face was drawn tight, like he'd rehearsed something all the way over but lost the script the moment I opened the door. Mom, he said. I didn't invite him in. I just waited. I don't get it, he said, shifting his weight like a restless child. You raised us to be close. To be a family. And now you're just out. Like you don't care. I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door gently behind me. I didn't stop caring, I said. I stopped volunteering to be treated like furniture. His eyes narrowed. This is about money, isn't it? I almost laughed. It was always about money with Brian. Or rather, what I could offer. Babysitting, emergency rent, groceries when the fridge got low. No, I said. This is about dignity. He scoffed. So you're just done with us? With me? After everything? I looked him square in the face. After everything, Brian, I finally realized you only call when you need something. You don't visit. You don't ask how I'm doing. You don't see me unless I'm holding something out to you. He flinched. Not big, not dramatic. Just the smallest twitch in his jaw. That's not fair, he muttered. I've got stress, a kid, a job. I'm not perfect. Neither am I said. But I showed up for 30 years. I answered every call. I held your hand when you failed math and when your girlfriend left you and when your daughter was born. I gave everything I had, and the moment I asked for space, just space, you acted like I betrayed you. I'm your son, he said, voice low, dangerous now. You owe me more than this. No, I said, I don't owe you anything. Love is not a debt. And being my son doesn't entitle you to drain me dry. He stepped closer, too close, and said something that stopped my breath. You're selfish now. I looked at him, this grown man who used to hold my pinky finger to cross the street, and felt something shift inside me, slow and permanent. No, I said, I'm finally not being selfish. He sneered. You live alone. You have time. You're not dying. You could help. That's exactly why I won't, I said. Because I finally have time. Because I'm not dying. Because I want to live the years I have left on my own terms. He didn't understand. I could see it. The confusion was real. Like I'd just rewritten the rules of gravity, and he didn't know which way was up. I don't know who you are anymore, he said, turning away. I whispered, that's because you never really tried to know me. And I meant it. He left without another word. And I didn't cry. I made tea. I sat by the window. And I breathed. There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop needing someone to understand you. It's not closure. It's not victory. It's freedom. I didn't lose a son that day. I just stopped pretending I still had one. The house felt louder after Brian left. Not with noise, but with everything he took with him. The air carried the echo of that final sentence. I don't know who you are anymore. I sat with it. I didn't rush to clean or call Elaine or distract myself with some task like I used to. I just sat in it. Let it settle. Let the silence stretch. There's something strange that happens when you finally create space in your life for yourself. At first, it feels hollow, unused, like a guest room no one visits. And your first instinct is to fill it with something, anything, just so you don't feel the emptiness. But I didn't this time. I just made tea, lit a candle, and pulled out a notebook I'd bought weeks ago but hadn't touched yet. It still had the price tag on it. I peeled it off, opened to the first blank page, and wrote one sentence: I am not a failure for choosing peace. Then I wrote it again. And again. Until the whole page was filled. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up thinking I heard a knock on the door. A voice. My name being called. But it was just the wind. Just my nervous system, still unlearning the habit of alertness. Because for decades, I'd trained myself to be ready. Ready to help, to fix, to sacrifice. It took me longer than I expected to realize. No one was coming. And that was the point. There's no applause when you choose yourself. No parade, no thank you card, just the quiet. And at first, it feels cold. But eventually, if you sit with it long enough, you realize it's not empty. It's yours. I started doing small things again. Nothing glamorous. Just living. I rearranged the furniture in the living room. Not for guests. For me. So that the sunlight hit my reading chair just right in the morning. I cooked lentils with turmeric and ginger. Frank used to hate the smell. I played old records while folding laundry. I bought a lavender plant for the windowsill, even though I'd never kept a plant alive longer than a week. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. One afternoon, as I was putting groceries away, I opened the fridge and realized something. I had finally stopped buying food other people liked. No juice boxes. No extra snacks just in case the kids dropped by. No bland leftovers in case Brian's picky stomach didn't agree with spice. Just fresh produce, my favorite cheese, a little bottle of sparkling water. And it hit me, not in a dramatic way, but like a soft hand on the shoulder. This is my life now. Not borrowed, not bargained for, mine. I sat down on the kitchen floor and let myself feel it all. The grief, the relief, the fear, the wonder. Because rebuilding your life after decades of self-erasure doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like grocery lists that only have your name at the top. It looks like lighting a candle because you want to, not because guests are coming. It looks like sitting in the silence and realizing it finally belongs to you. The first real test of my new life came on a Sunday afternoon. I was sweeping the back porch, barefoot, with the sun hitting just the edge of my collarbone, when my phone buzzed. not a call. A video. It was Emma, Amanda's daughter, my oldest granddaughter. She was sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, holding a crayon drawing up to the screen. "Hi Grandma," she said, her voice soft, a little unsure. "I drew us. We're baking cookies. Mommy says maybe we can do that again sometime. If you want to." My knees gave out. I sank right down onto the porch steps, the broom falling next to me like I'd dropped a weapon. That little voice cracked something wide open. Not in the painful way. In the way a seed splits before it grows. I watched the video 3 times. Then I saved it. And for the first time since I left, I allowed myself to believe, just maybe, not everything was lost. But with Emma's message came a wave of something else. Doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Was choosing myself really worth the cost? I thought of the birthdays I missed. The way Amanda didn't send me a Mother's Day card. The way Brian's silence had turned from angry to icy. And I won't lie, there were days I ached. Not for Frank, not for the beige, but for the idea of family. The version we pretend exists. The warm kitchen, the shared laughter, the phone calls that begin with just checking in. But that version never existed. Not in my life. What I missed was the fantasy. What I left was the reality. Still, it hurt. And just when I thought I was finally finding some balance, between my grief and my healing, between silence and self-expression, life, as it does, threw me a curveball. It was Elaine who delivered the news. She'd been talking to a mutual friend, someone who still ran in the same small-town social circles, and apparently, Frank had started spreading rumors. That I'd gone senile. That I was being taken advantage of. That I was, and I quote, not mentally well. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I just sat. That old familiar weight tried to creep back in. The one that told me to keep the peace. To call him and sort it out. To protect his reputation. But I didn't. Instead, I did something I never imagined I'd have the courage to do. I showed up. At the church. Not for a service. Not to stir drama. But to speak. It was open mic night, a little community event they did once a month. Mostly kids playing guitar, women reading poems, older men reciting stories about fishing and war. I signed my name on the list. Elaine sat in the back, holding her coffee like a security blanket. I waited. My hands trembled. My heart thundered. But when they called my name, I walked up to the mic. I didn't read poetry. I didn't share a joke. I told the truth. I said, my name is Margaret. I'm 68 years old. And I only just learned how to take up space. The room went still. I talked about silence. About beige kitchens. About invisible years. About giving and giving until you forget what your own voice sounds like. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew someone like me. Some of them were me. When I finished, there was no thunderous applause. Just a few quiet claps. A couple of tears. And one woman, gray hair pulled back in a braid, hands weathered and strong, stood up and said, "Thank you." Later, in the parking lot, 3 more women stopped me. "I've been thinking of leaving," one whispered. "But I didn't think I was allowed." "You gave me permission," said another. "You reminded me I'm still in here," said the third, pressing a hand to her chest. And in that moment, I realized something I never expected. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a mirror, a crack in the wall. A hand reaching out from the dark, saying, "You're not alone." That night, I slept deeply. The kind of sleep you only get when you've emptied something out of your soul that had been festering there for decades. And when I woke, the sun was rising through the curtains. Birdsong, coffee, peace, no demands, no knocks, just me. And for once, that was more than enough. A few days later, I went to the pharmacy to grab some hand cream and a bottle of vitamins. I didn't expect anything special. Just another quiet moment from this new life I was slowly building. I was standing there, comparing 2 nearly identical jars with a $3 difference, when I felt a light touch on my elbow. I turned around, and there she was. Emma, my granddaughter. She looked older than I remembered, taller too, wearing a sequined jacket and that same cautious curiosity I used to see in her eyes when she was little. She didn't speak right away. She just stared. And then, like a slow exhale, she whispered, "You really left." "You just left." I nodded. I didn't know what to say. But then she added, "Mom keeps saying you broke the family." But I think maybe you just didn't want to stay broken yourself. I froze. How did she? She didn't wait for my answer. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't a light hug. It was tight, full of something I couldn't name. And then she said, "Can I come see you sometimes? Just to talk. No drama." I held her hands in mine and said, "You can come see me whenever you want. The door is always open where you're heard." She nodded, trying not to cry, then wiped her nose with her sleeve and shifted back into kid mode. "I gotta go. We have tennis practice. But I'm really glad I saw you." And just like that, she was gone. I stood there holding that jar of hand cream like it was an anchor. And something inside me shifted. I realized I didn't have to stand there debating between the expensive or the cheaper one. I could just buy the one I liked. I could do that now, choose myself. Small choices, big choices. All mine. But more than that, I realized that my walking away, it wasn't just an end. It was the beginning of something else. Maybe Emma wouldn't grow up believing silence is strength. Maybe she wouldn't think love means shrinking. Maybe one little girl in our family won't spend 60 years trying to earn the right to breathe freely. That night, I went home and pulled out an old photo album. Not to cry over it, but to decide what parts to keep. And what parts to finally let go of. I didn't throw away the past. I just stopped letting it own me. The more days passed, the more I realized that peace doesn't look like what we were told. It doesn't wear pearls or come with quiet Sunday dinners where everyone says please and thank you but no one speaks the truth. No, peace, real peace, is messier. It's a room full of things that finally belong to you. A to-do list you wrote because you wanted to. A decision made without checking someone else's temperature first. I started walking every morning again. Down the same trail behind Elaine's house, the one that curved through a stretch of woods with trees so tall they felt like guardians. I walked in silence. Not the old silence, the obedient, heavy, watch your tone kind. No, this was different. It was the silence of listening. Of meeting myself in the stillness and saying, okay, let's start again. One morning, I passed a bench I'd never noticed before. It was tucked near the edge of the trail, half hidden by branches. Something made me stop and sit down. I wasn't tired, just still. And as I sat there, I whispered the words out loud without planning to. I forgive you. I wasn't talking to Frank, or my kids, or even to Emma's mother. I was talking to me. Not the current me, the one in sneakers and a borrowed jacket, hair pulled back and heart still healing. I was talking to the woman I used to be. The one who stayed too long. Who stayed quiet. Who begged for love she had already earned. Who gave and thought that was her value. I forgive you, I said again. And this time it didn't feel like a weakness. It felt like medicine. Because the truth is, I had to make peace with her. Not judge her, not erase her, but fold her in, let her rest. Because she tried. She really did. After that, something changed. I stopped checking my phone for messages that weren't coming. I stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen the way I wanted. I stopped trying to make the people who hurt me understand why they did. Instead, I bought paint. I didn't know what I was painting. I just knew I had to start. I set up a little space in the sunroom, an easel, a folding table, a cheap set of acrylics from the discount store. At first, the colors came out muddy, like I was afraid to go bold. But one day, I dipped my brush in red. Deep, defiant, unapologetic red. And something inside me said, more. So I kept going. I painted oranges and greens, deep blues, strange shapes that didn't make sense to anyone but me. I didn't care. For the first time in years, my hands were making something that wasn't about survival. It was about self. And then something wild happened. Elaine came in one afternoon and looked at one of my paintings and said, "You know what that looks like?" I braced myself for the joke. The polite laugh. But she said, "It looks like someone came back to life." And maybe I had. About a week later, the letter arrived. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter. Heavy envelope, stiff paper, the kind meant to deliver something important or threatening. It was from Frank's lawyer. The words were cold, formal. Notice of intent to pursue marital asset review due to abandonment. Legalese, mostly. But the message was clear. He was trying to punish me for leaving. Trying to make sure that if I didn't come crawling back, I'd at least come back broke. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time with that letter in my hands. I read it once, then again, then I set it down and looked out the window at my little herb garden. The thyme had started to bloom, and I smiled, because for the first time, I didn't feel scared. I felt insulted, almost amused, like this was what he thought would make me turn around. After 60 years of being dismissed, erased, managed, he still thought I could be scared into obedience. He had no idea who he was dealing with anymore. I made an appointment with a lawyer the next morning. A woman named Valerie, sharp as glass and calm as stone. She read the letter, looked up, and said, "He's bluffing." I told her I didn't want revenge. I just wanted what was fair. And I wanted my peace protected. She nodded. "We'll respond. And we'll do it in your voice." I didn't even know I had one of those, a legal voice. But we crafted a response that was clear, strong, factual. No anger, no drama, just boundaries, and it felt good. It felt better than good. It felt like finally holding the pen on my own life. A few days later, I mailed the letter back, sealed it myself, walked it to the post office, and as I slid it into the slot, I said under my breath, "You don't get to rewrite my ending." That night, I opened a bottle of wine Elaine had been saving for something worth celebrating. We sat on her porch, barefoot, blankets over our laps, and toasted to small victories. She looked at me and said, "You know what I see when I look at you now?" I raised an eyebrow. "A woman with excellent taste in Cabernet?" She laughed. "I see someone who doesn't flinch anymore." And she was right. There were still hard days, of course. I'd get a voicemail from one of the kids that felt more like a guilt trap than a hello. I'd hear that Frank was telling people I'd lost my mind, that I'd abandoned the family, that I was unstable. And it stung. Not because it was true, but because for so long, I was the glue. And now they acted like I was the crack. But here's the thing about walking away from a fire. You still smell like smoke for a while. Doesn't mean you didn't make it out alive. I was alive, more than ever, and I wasn't going back. One afternoon, I stopped by the little bookstore in town. The kind with handwritten recommendation cards and creaky wooden floors. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just wanted to be around stories that weren't mine. Stories with clear endings. Stories where the good guys win. As I wandered the aisles, I overheard two women whispering in the corner. They didn't notice me at first, but I caught a few words. She just walked out, left everything, even her grandkids. The tone wasn't shocked. It was smug, like gossip disguised as concern. Then one of them said it, my name. I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I stepped forward and said, "If you're going to talk about me, at least let me hear the whole story." They froze. One of them stammered, "Oh, we didn't mean anything," but I held up a hand. "You don't have to explain. I'm not mad. I just want you to know something." They looked up, wide-eyed. I didn't walk out because I stopped loving people. I walked out because I finally started loving myself. Silence. Then I picked up the book I'd been holding, nodded politely, and walked to the register. When I got home that evening, I wrote it down in my journal. I finally said it out loud. It wasn't about making them understand. It was about making sure I didn't forget. That night, I made a list. Not a to-do list. Not a grocery list. A never again list. Never again will I apologize for taking up space. Never again will I let someone else define what love looks like. Never again will I confuse survival for living. Never again will I teach the next generation that being useful is the same as being loved. I taped the list to my bathroom mirror. Every morning, I read it while brushing my teeth. It reminded me, I wasn't going back. Not just to Frank, not just to the house, but to that version of myself who waited for permission to breathe. And then something unexpected happened. I got a letter. Not from Frank. From Sophie. Another one. This one had stickers again, tiny stars and a drawing of a bird. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper. Lined. Messy handwriting. But every word pierced my heart in the best possible way. It said, "Grandma, I read the thing you wrote for the community center. Mommy showed me. I think you're brave. I want to be like you. Can I come visit soon? Also, I'm learning to cook." I made toast without burning it. Love, Sophie. I held that letter like it was made of glass. Not because it was fragile, but because it was precious. It was proof that the ripple had begun. That maybe, just maybe, I hadn't left my family. I'd just started leading it somewhere new. That night, I stood in front of my kitchen sink, washing dishes with warm soapy water, jazz playing low in the background, a candle flickering on the windowsill. And I whispered to myself, you're doing it. You're building a life from scratch. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't loud. But it was mine. And that made it beautiful. Sophie came to visit the very next weekend. It wasn't planned, not really. Melissa called and said quietly, she won't stop asking. She packed her own bag and everything. I told her to bring her over. No long discussions, no expectations, just time. Just us. When Sophie arrived, she ran into my arms like we hadn't missed a single day. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and peanut butter, her little hands gripping mine like I was her lighthouse. And in that moment, I knew, I hadn't lost my family. I was just finally earning the version of it I actually wanted. She stayed the whole weekend. We painted, not just paper, either. We painted flower pots, old glass jars, even a rock from the yard that she declared was the guardian of Grandma's porch. We made cookies and burned half the batch. We stayed up too late watching an old cartoon she picked at random, and we both cried when the dog found its way home in the end. She never asked why I'd left. She didn't need to. She just kept saying, I'm so glad you're here. The morning they left, she hugged me tight and whispered, I told Mommy I want to live with you when I'm older. I smiled, brushing her hair back behind her ear, and said, you'll live wherever your heart feels safe, baby girl. And I'll always be right here. Melissa didn't say much when she picked Sophie up. But before she got in the car, she turned and said, thank you. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was honest. And that was enough. Later that week, I was at the farmer's market, picking out tomatoes for a new pasta recipe, when I ran into Nicole. Of all people, Frank's daughter-in-law, or, I guess, ex-daughter-in-law now. She saw me before I saw her. And when I turned, her face twisted into that same tight, polite smile I remembered too well. The kind that said, you're not supposed to exist outside the narrative we gave you. She looked me up and down and said, so, you're still playing the rebel? I blinked slowly, holding the tomato in my hand. No, Nicole, I stopped playing anything. She scoffed. Well, Frank says you've lost your mind. But honestly, I think you're just bored. You were always looking for attention. I set the tomato down carefully and said, number. I was always looking for myself. And I found her. Then I picked up my basket and walked away. No arguing, no raised voice, no trying to prove anything. She could spin whatever story she wanted. I wasn't in it anymore. That evening, I wrote in my journal again. Just one line this time, I no longer need anyone's approval to feel real. Because I didn't. I was learning how to live as me. Not the version they curated. Not the supporting actress in someone else's story. Just me, with my chipped flower pots, my jazz in the mornings, my handwritten grocery lists, and my quiet strength. And the world hadn't ended. In fact, it had only just begun. A few months later, I stood at the edge of a dock, watching the sun sink low over the lake. The water was still, glassy, painted with gold and soft lavender. My hands were wrapped around a chipped blue mug, my favorite one, the one that didn't match anything else in the cupboard. This place, this lakefront cabin I'd rented for the summer. It wasn't fancy. It had squeaky floorboards and mismatched chairs. But it was mine for now. Just mine. I had planted sunflowers along the porch. They were crooked and wild and perfect. There was a hammock between two trees where I read books with the pages curling in the heat. Sometimes I wrote there too, just for me. Sometimes I did nothing at all. And for the first time in my entire life, that felt like enough. The court case was over. The settlement finalized. No more letters from lawyers. No more threats. Frank had moved to Florida, from what I heard. Still telling people I went crazy. Still trying to control the narrative. But I didn't flinch when I heard it anymore. Because I knew the truth. And the people who mattered? They knew it too. I'd been invited back to the women's shelter. Not just to speak, to teach. Every Wednesday, I sat in a circle of folding chairs with women who had walked through storms. Some had bruises you could still see. Some had scars no one else could. And every single one of them was rebuilding. Not perfectly, not neatly, but honestly. That was the new measure of success in my life, honesty. Did I show up as myself today? Did I say what I meant, even if my voice shook? Did I choose peace over pretending? Then I'd done enough. One afternoon, after class, one of the women stayed behind. She was maybe 70, maybe older. She had silver hair like mine, worn in a low braid that looked like it had seen thousands of sunrises. She took my hand and said, "I stayed silent for 40 years. Thought I was too old to start over. Then I heard you, and I thought, maybe not." I squeezed her hand. "It's never too late to come home to yourself." She smiled. "That's what you did, isn't it?" I nodded. "Exactly that. And now? Now, the noise in my head is gone. Now, I make decisions without fear. Now, I wake up in a quiet house and smile, not because everything's perfect, but because everything is mine. Now, I know that the love I give to others is only as real as the love I give to myself. And I no longer pour from an empty cup." That night, I lit a candle by the window. Not for someone else to see. Just for me. And as the flame danced in the glass, I whispered the words I wished someone had told me when I was 20. 30, even 50, you matter. You were not too late. You were never invisible. They just weren't looking. I curled up in the old armchair with a blanket over my lap, the stars blinking through the window above me, and felt something I'd waited my whole life for. Peace. The real kind. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that stays.